Hello and welcome to today's video. This is the first of two looks at my Hutchinson Pocket Library collection. Now these books came out pre-war and they had lots of different offshoots and different sub-series and genre series, and it's quite a complicated but fascinating little series to take a look at. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we'll start off with Hutchinson Pocket Library number 1. Now this one actually isn't in a dust wrapper, but many of the original books did come with dust wrappers. And Hutchinson was a publisher that was traditionally known for magazines rather than books, but they started moving into book publication in the 1930s, early 1930s. And they very much saw Penguin with envious eyes. Penguin had started in July 1935, and a conglomerate of publishers, including Hutchinson, decided to band together and create their own sort of paperback list. And these are very, very similar to the Penguin books in that respect. Now, they do come in different covers, coloured covers, and they are supposed to represent different sorts of stories. But really, at this time, the only sort of definitive generic one across most publishers was green for crime and yellow for westerns. And the crime ones were released under like separate imprints, which we'll have a look at, like Crime Society books, Jackdaw books, and we've even got some toucans, which we'll look at in part 2. But for this video, we're going to look through my numbered Pocket Library, Hutchinson Pocket Library editions, some of the services editions that I've got, and also they did a little run of non-fiction. I think that'll probably be enough for this first look. So this is an early copy. It's very, very difficult, because Hutchinson were notorious for not putting their printing history on. It's very, very difficult to know what printing is what. So you generally have to go by the amount of books listed on the back. So this number 1 here lists 12 books. So chances are when the list was launched, they had their first like dozen already lined up. Here's number 2, and this one's got its original dust jacket. They were sixpence, exactly the same as the Penguins and the other publishers of the era. The Muth and Sixpennies, for example. As you can see, they're pretty fragile. At least this copy is quite fragile. But in actual fact, the books are fairly robustly made. And they're not as good as Penguin quality-wise, but they are pretty good. And this one, once again, has got 12 listed on the back. Now here's a green one, which I would suspect would then be a crime title. I've not looked it up, but I'll suspect that that's what it is. But you just don't know with these. And this one has got 35 listed on the back of the dust wrapper. So almost certainly this is not a first printing. This is a later printing. But as I said, impossible to tell because they didn't really put the printing history in there. But I'm not overly worried. It's just nice to have a copy of the book more than anything. And they are very, very similar to Penguin. I do collect the Penguin imitators now, as well as Penguin themselves, of course. Here's number 6. The Street of Adventure by Philip Gibbs. Obviously, these are all reprint. There was no new material, so the books had come out in hardback first of all. And with a few exceptions, there's not that many like really well-known authors, at least not by today's standards, but there are a few which we'll come across. Here's number 7. But they do turn up these, and I don't think any of them are massively expensive. G.B. Stern, this is number 9. See, this is that's probably an original one because it's just got the 12 on the back, whereas that one's got the first 30. So that's how we're telling the different reprints. And it's not guesswork. It is just, doing a bit of detective work more than anything. At number 10 here, a bit of a loss of the spine there. That's got 31 on the back. So unless you had lots and lots of copies of these through your hands so that you could compare and start creating a bibliography, it's quite difficult to know which ones are first and which ones aren't. But as I said, I'm not overly worried. That's got 12 on the back there. Robert Cable, called Simon Called Peter. This is at number 12 with 12 on the back. And that's interesting. That's got a little 1135, which may well have been when that got published, November 35. Maybe. Here's a purple one now. Geoffrey Moss's famous novel, Sweet Pepper. It's number 14 in the series. And that lists the first 16 on the back. So you may, in fact, find this video useful as a guide yourself. Here's sort of a limey green rather than the darker green for number 15, with 16 books listed on the back. Now, red one again. Out of Great Tribulation. 20 on the back of that one. E.M. Delafield's Tension. Miss E.M. Delafield is always worth reading. She is witty, so it says. And here we Jacob again. That Wild Lie. I mean, the covers, you can see there is hints of penguin here. They are obviously all typographical. There's no actual illustrations on these, which was typical of books of this time. Although in some of their later imprints, which we'll see in the next video, like the jackdaws and the toucans and that, they do start adding, a little bit, that make the covers a bit more exciting and to try and make them stand out, I think, more than anything. So here's Compton Mackenzie, number 22. See, I suspect, if like this is number 22 and it's only got a few listed, that's probably a first printing of that one, whereas those other ones there are not, because they list too many books on the back. Sketch of a Sinner, 24. 24 on the back. E.M. Delafield again, another one. The Optimist. Of course, a lot of the paperback publishers had already been sort of swallowed up by the competition, really, or they just weren't prepared to have their books in paperback. There was definitely resistance from some authors as well, 27 there. So yeah, as I've had multiple copies through my hands, I've tried to just keep the best example rather than going for a lower grade earlier example. There's one I've got, which you'll see, which is in a real state. But I've got it because of who the author is, and I wouldn't get rid of it until a better one sort of came my way. Compton Mackenzie, 39 here, with 60 on the back. See, it's very difficult to tell, isn't it? So here's the first one by an author we may actually recognise a bit more, for modern audiences, with Dennis Wheatley. And Hutchinson published a lot of his hardbacks, and they did publish a few in this pocket library. I think I've got 3 of them. I'm not sure if there's any more. I can't remember looking at the list if there is any more. Age of Reason. This has got advert on the back. This is in a dust wrapper still, but it's got the OXO advert on the back with the list. Uniform with this 6-page series on the inside flaps. So if you were looking to fill in the gaps, that would be how you do it. Frank Swinnerton's The Three Lovers, number 41. After this, you need OXO. Of course, the threat of war is on its way, and that put paid, because there just wasn't enough paper to go around, to a lot of these penguin imitators. They just, as war came along, they just couldn't keep publishing in any great number. Not like this, anyway, not in any great numbers. It's a bit of a tatty old one, but it's all there. Number 42. This is a yellow one here. Now this, I'm sure, is not a Western, but they did have a separate Western series, and we may actually have one today. If not, it'll be in the next video where we see the little Wild West series that they did. This is number 43 here, Early Morning. Oh, here's another Dennis Wheatley. Looking the worst for wear, but it's not my worst one. That one was an anomaly. Black August. And I don't mind a bit of Dennis Wheatley, in all honesty. I know they're a little bit dated now, but not as bad as some. And he'd certainly churn them out, couldn't he? Now, this is a slightly odd one, because it's part of the main series, like number 48. And it's part of the Hutchinson's Pocket Library, but it says special edition on it. The Life and Loves of Marie Walewski, the strangest love story in the history on which the Greta Garbo novel is based. So, evidently there was a Greta Garbo a film, rather, the Greta Garbo film, which must have been released, and this tied into it. And Hutchinson were definitely the sort of publisher that would jump on this sort of thing. And look at, here we are. So there was a romantic series. I don't think I've got any of those. The Hutchinson's romantic novel series and the Wild West series, of which I have at least one. But as I said, I'm not sure I've got one to show you today. It might be in the second part of this video. Naomi Jacobs' Scene Unknown, number 53. Okay, Into the Land of Nod. This is number 54, with 54 listed on the back. Compton Mackenzie, Rich Relatives. Lady Eleanor Smith. Tis Again, is that how you pronounce that? Standard OXO advert, just with the different colours, isn't it? Now, this is my porous condition. Hutchinson, look at this. But here's The Devil Rides Out, one of his most famous ones. The best thing of its kind since Dracula. And, well, look, it's absolutely falling to bits, but it's all there. Well, bar the dust jacket. And, yeah, I'd never get rid of that until a better one came my way. Then I'd give it to a deserving person, I think, who's looking for it, because it is pretty scarce, that one. Probably the most desirable one of the early list, I reckon, bar the services editions. Unchanging Quest, number 62. Run a blue ones here. Portrait of His Excellency, Stephen McKenna, number 64. The other thing that's a bit weird about these is that on the spine they just look like they've got R.H. Mottram, Time to Be Going, but it's almost like they introduce it, R.H. Mottram's famous novel, and they have a different like subheading there, like leading into the book. It's a very weird way of doing it, that. Unique, I think, to this publisher. Eleanor Mordaunt's The Dark Fire. I mean, every book is their famous book, isn't it? Every single one. They're just trying to sell it again. Owen Rutter, White Raja, number 70 this is. 70 on the back. Now, you may recognise this author, and this is another slightly more collectible one, Raphael Sabatini. These Captain Blood novels, which are basically like piracy on the high seas, you could say, are extremely, extremely popular. And I know the Pan editions are supremely sought after by Sabatini collectors. No date on this. Now, something else, this is another thing that they absolutely copied from Penguin Books. You see that there, that little purple Captain Blood logo. It says label for your pocket binding case. You could buy like a kit, basically, so you could bind these books, these paperbacks, into hardback. You'd cut that Captain Blood out, and then you'd stick it on the spine of the book. And that was Penguin, once again, they pioneered that, and Hutchinson just out and out copied them. The little scamps. Talbot Mundy, Caesar Dies. But of course, this was still the age when paperbacks were regarded as disposable medium. And, read it, you'd give it away or just chuck it, really. You wouldn't really hold on to them like a hardback. Stephen McKenna's The Undiscovered Country. Nothing to do with Star Trek. And a light blue again. A Modern Melody, Geoffrey Moss. J.D. Beresford, The Faithful Lovers. Another slightly tattier one, that. Slide them over there. Margaret Brash, Janock. And they've stopped saying it's their most famous book now. At least they got the hint. Rex Beach, Beyond Control. Mr. Rex Beach can tell a good story, according to the Sunday Times. Well, I'm sure he could. P.C. Wren, you've probably heard of that author. Driftwood Spars. Did Beau Jest, of course. Here's another one by P.C. Wren. The Snake and the Sword, number 94. 96, Diana Patrick's Vain Pantomime. H. Samuel advert on the back there. Get your jewellery in. And this is the last one that I've got in the main series. It's number 123. So quite a jump, but it's a good one. I've had this for years, yeah. The Ghost Book, compiled by Cynthia Asquith, which would eventually become a Pan later on. And yeah, quite a nice copy of this one. Little date inside of October 49. This was much earlier than that, of course. There we are. So that was like the normal main series, and like all the publishers around the wartime, they had their own range of services editions, and this is one of them. Naomi Jacob. Very, very similar to the normal Pocket Library, except the addition of Services Edition. They're thinner because of the paper rationing. Produced for the Central Services Book Depot, and they would circulate them to the armed and allied forces around the world. This book must not be resold. So I've got one there, and I got this one here, which is the Black Beret in a Services Edition. These generally go for about a tenner each, the Services books, and the rest of the run, with the exception of the Dennis Wheatleys and the Sabatinis, are all like about a fiver each. The Wheatleys are usually about a tenner each. So that's it for the normal series, but then they did launch quite an interesting series of non-fiction. Same format as part of the Hutchinson Pocket Library, but it distinctly says a non-fiction series. And the first one, numbers 1 and 2, was H.G. Wells' The Shape of Things to Come, released in 2 volumes. They've all got this like grid cover identity. There were the first 8 listed on the back there. And I think this was, once again, a bit like Penguin, to appeal to a different sort of a market. Popular Pocket Library, the Westerns, the Crime Book Society ones. We'll see those next video. Yeah. So yeah, in the next ones we have got the Crime Society books, the Jackdaws. We've got the Toucans and the service editions that went with them. And we'll also have a look at my Guild books, which were from a very similar point in publishing history. But yeah, there's the first 2 of the non-fiction ones. So here's the next one, number 3, which is by the first Earl of Birkenhead. And this one's famous Trials of History. He also wrote about true crime as well. And this is, once again, a Hutchinson author who moved over into the land of Hutchinson Paperbacks, as so many of them did. Number 4 here, Haworth Parsonage. Now, we have to remember that this is all leading up to the outbreak of the Second World War. So the titles, a bit like the Penguin specials, start to reflect that. So this is, amazingly, look, they published the right-wing fascist Benito Mussolini's autobiography. That might be quite scarce for all I know. At least they didn't publish Mein Kampf. No Coward, don't you know? Collected sketches and lyrics. Nice early Noel Coward book there. But that's quite nice. A good read. Once again, a bit of a slightly lower copy on that one. Lower grade copy. But at least I got one. Out of the Beaten Track, a major treat. Travel in little known Africa, it says that. Just travel writing. Lowell Thomas with Lawrence in Arabia. Looks quite good, isn't it? Obviously Lawrence Arabia related. Oh, here he is, look. Earl of Birkenhead again. Turning Points in History. So not actually a crime related one for him on that one. The Menace of Japan. So once again, a bit like a Penguin special, bringing to the public attention what was going on in different parts of the world. This is a great one. Secrets of Houdini. Houdini was still very popular in the 1930s. A little book of magic tricks and what have you. Yeah, huge name, even to this day. You know, everyone knows who Houdini was. So George McMunn, The Underworld of India. It's number 16 now. So we've jumped forward a few here. 18, Edward VIII, Duke of Windsor. Clive of India, number 22. And the last one I've got is, once again, the latest. You know, I haven't got anything past this. Number 23, The Jews of Britain. So whether, and that's the last one listed. So whether any more got published before, well, they had to just stop because there was no paper to go around. Who knows? Who knows? But that was the problem. And you can see this is much, much thinner than the other ones as well. So there we go. That's part 1 of my Hutchinson Sixpenny Library. And they are really interesting books to collect and not that expensive if you fancy trying to put a collection together yourself. Next time then, we'll look at the Crime Society ones, the Jackdaws, the Toucans, as well as my complete Guild book collection. If you've enjoyed today's video, do please give it that thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.